Hello, welcome to the Van University monthly recurring webinar. Thank you for being here. Today is Thursday, September 21st, and I'm Brian Girardi hosting for us today. And as you can see on screen with me is Vehicle Acquisition Network founder Tom Gregg. Also with us is David Long and Gary Wade. David and Gary are working with us to help provide this curriculum that we're going to go through. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand things over really to you, Tom, to give everyone a quick orientation and get this thing started.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, David. Appreciate you guys being here. So today, what I thought would be best would be to begin with talking about the different strategies that we, from a high level, at the van perspective, what we see a lot of dealers selecting. So before we get into that, I wanted to discuss a few things about the prerequisites. And I really believe that if Gary and David exchanged their practices and did things very differently and even sold widgets or anything besides what they're doing now, they would be equally as successful in other aspects. So I want to begin with the prerequisites because it doesn't matter as much about what you do or which of these three strategies, as long as you have the other core elements that are drastically more important than all of those. The prerequisites that we often see are having a positive attitude and making the most of everything you have. And part of the Grande process is they have a 10-step process. And what's interesting is they actually have step 0 is having a positive attitude. So the most important element is being positive about the work that you're doing, about the people that you're working with. The next prerequisite that we often see is among David and Gary and others that are the high achievers are being solution-oriented. And solution-oriented really speaks to the fact that you have a way. And if there is an issue or concern, that you're able to make the most of every opportunity. So that means that if the seller's car is priced high, you don't complain or get upset that the person is unrealistic. You find a solution for their need. And so that's what it's all about, is these consumers are obviously selling their car because they have a need, and we are, as dealers, are the solution for that problem and that need. Continued on with that, so being focused on providing excellent customer service. So David and Gary both provide, top-notch, excellent customer service, and this is kind of the core to who they are as operators. They're also transparent. They show, they don't just tell. So they actually show the consumers how they came about with their offers and what's represented in that, what the issues or reasoning or rationale on why the vehicle is worth what it's worth.
For our initial walk around, we don't do the traditional tear down, we do the build up, which is the complete opposite. What I mean by that is we leverage our economy of scale and talk about how we're going to be able to save the consumer money on the repairs needed, which enhances the value of their vehicle. So we go the complete antithesis of the old car business. What happened? Did anybody die? We move to a positive place versus a negative place.
So that kind of speaks into the transparencies where, they show, they don't tell. So I know when each of them provide offers, I know Gary has no problem showing vAuto, which is the tool they use to provide the values for the vehicles.
We have a dual screen system that we've used, and one screen is facing the purchaser, and one screen is facing the customer. And as we go through vAuto and change the different values and priorities as far as putting in all the equipment, putting in all the mileage, putting the condition, putting the reconditioning in, we talk about it with the consumer and ask them if they agree when we talk about a price for a reconditioning item per se, and get them to agree with us. And then look at all the guides, look at Kelley Blue Book, look at Provision, look at all the different guides that are available in Black Book and Auction Research MMR, and use everything on the screen as a tool to have them come to an agreement with us in a very non-confrontational way.
That kind of takes us into the teamwork. So each of these gentlemen, as well as the top operators, have phenomenal teams that understand their part. They understand the process. They execute very, very efficiently with each and everything they do because they know what's expected. They have both rewards and consequences.
So we have a completely laid out buying process and daily standards for each acquisition manager and acquisition team member. The difference between an acquisition manager and an acquisition team member is their ability to do this from start to finish. So a manager can take the consumer from the walk around to the paperwork. An acquisition team member sets appointments, confirms appointments, and does follow-up work. So each and every day, each one of them have KPIs that they need to follow. Appointment set, or outbound calls, contacts, number of instant cash offers, number of appointments set, number of appointments shown, and most importantly, number of vehicles that made it to and through inspection. Because we are, at this moment, closing 75% of all vehicles that get to inspection.
And the last thing that I would say is a common thread there is focus on what you can control. If what they can control is still providing an offer for that vehicle, that's something within their control. If it's managing the seller's expectations, that's within their control. If it's finding an outlet on where they could sell a vehicle that would not fit their retail strategy, that is still within their control. So where they excel and buy a lot of cars and in turn naturally earn a lot of revenue and a lot of money for their organizations is they focus on these things. They focus on the team. They focus on having an excellent experience for the consumers that come in to sell their car. So they don't worry about the things that are outside of their control. They don't worry about the sellers that are asking $10,000 too much. And to that point, the sellers that are asking $10,000 too much, by them communicating with them, you're actually, I think, and we've seen from many sellers and our dealers we work with, is that they have a better shot to acquire that car because they're one of many fewer people that are communicating with them. So they still focus on what is within their control to provide a solution for these consumers. We don't have a lot of dealers that operate with the actual offer, but I still want to mention it because it is a way that some want to go, and it does work for some of our stores, but I don't see it working to the scale that it is working for our dealers that operate with the range or with the everybody's welcome like Gary operates. What they do is they gather information on the vehicle. They get a quote from the used car manager or the buyer, and they reach back out to the seller and they provide an actual exact offer on that car. So by the sellers having an actual offer, they're less likely to get upset if they show up at the dealership. So I think you're able to manage some of the seller's expectations because they get the expectation immediately. It also permits buying teams to operate remotely. So if you're not in the actual city, but you may have a place where they can go and visit, it permits you to have a centralized office that could operate among several locations. It's also upfront. So you're giving the sellers the information immediately. We see that it limits, it restricts the acquisition level because it's limiting the opportunity to demonstrate the value proposition that you have. And when you have an excellent organization, you want to share that. And the preconceived information and notions that a lot of customers or consumers have of dealerships is not always in the best light. So this gives the organization an opportunity to show that you aren't your traditional dealership. You aren't the norm. And if you have an organization like that and you don't have the ability to communicate that and you're only giving them a number, that relationship is pretty minimal. It's just a number and nothing more. The other con that we see to provide an exact offer on the phone is that it takes a lot of time to gather the information, to do the research, to provide the offer, and the consumer hasn't invested a lot into the process themselves other than giving you the information. And then you're doing a lot of the legwork, and you're coming back and you have not provided the value at that point besides simply giving a number. So that's the other thing that we see, that it restricts the ability to scale because you're investing a lot of time and you haven't really asked much of the consumer other than just the information. So I want to move on to the range. And the range base is the way that David operates. So, and the range is just that. So you're providing, so you have agents that have access to information and they're able to provide a range for the consumer.
What I've identified, we have 35 appraisers in the company. And what I've identified is if I have all 35 appraised two cars, there will be a delta between those two appraisals in any given scenario of anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. So I identify that we're going to be wrong a lot. So what I don't want to do is invite somebody in that wants a specific value that I know I can't get to, and I also don't want to give an exact value over the phone because I know we're going to be wrong. So what I do, or what we do, I should say, is we tell the consumer, to Gary's point, market indicators, and that's it. Market indicates vehicles similar to yours transact between 10,000 and 13,000. Is today good or is tomorrow better to get together? That vehicle will be worth between 10 and 13 if the consumer accurately represented it, which is a whole nother sort of conversation. But the conversation lasts for 3 to 5 minutes. And at that point, we invite the consumer in as long as we're both in the same ballpark. If we're not, we wish them luck. We send them a Carfax to help them with their sale. We tell them what Kelley Blue Book retail could be, and away they go. We let the market educate them. It's not our job to tell them that they're wrong because the market will do that for us.
A fair amount of pros with that model. David, are there any things that you would rather see among the model that you have, or and I don't see a lot of cons with that, but obviously there's different ways to do things. Any aspect of that you would like to see improved, or things you struggle with?
So Tom, we're currently sitting with a 4.5-star Yelp review. We get great reviews. We just got a great review from the vice president at Google. I believe that it's more pros and very few cons. Do we miss some car deals by not inviting people in? Probably. But what we gain in the way of customer experience it outweighs the couple car deals that we may miss by not inviting everybody in. That's my opinion.
The third way that we see dealers operate, and a fair number of dealers that often have BDC reps, and they often want to leave it up to the appointment setters. And this is the way that we often will see that dealers can operate, if they don't have maybe somebody that has access to the offers.
I believe one of the most successful things that I've looked at and developed is with our BDC reps, being able to make contacts at a very, very high rate during the day, because they do not have to get into pricing. In fact, the BDC reps have no knowledge at all of the cars or how they price or conditions or anything else. The BDC reps are there to invite the customer into the buying center. The consumer has been contacted 2 or 3 times probably by the time that they come in. And it's very simple to explain, folks, because of your car being unique to you, I really don't think that it would be doing you or your vehicle justice to get into the pricing on the phone. But when you come in, it'll be a very short process. Within a minute or 2, you walking in the door, a buying agent will be with you that can go with you, inspect your car, take it for a quick ride, and very quickly, within 10 to 15 minutes, provide you with a price that we would be willing to write you a check on the spot and give you a free ride home. How's that? for you. Can you make it here at 3 or 4? First contact with any of the consumers is a BDC agent. If you put them in a call center, like the way we designed it, they have no free time. That phone is dialing. They try to make 250 to 300 contacts per BDC agent per day. It's a very intense scheduling in a 9 to 10 hour day. But it's something that can be done. And once they get proficient at it, and if you have the right tools in your CRM, auto dialing and everything else, it moves very quickly that way. So that's your BDC agent. You want a very gregarious, very happy-go-lucky person that can make hundreds of contacts a day like that, keep a smile on their face. Remember that consumer, this is the first time they've talked to somebody about their car in that day, even though that person has made in the last week has made 1,500 contacts. So they have to keep their enthusiasm level up. As far as the buying agents, I've had great success with a couple different personalities. One of my mantras that I live by that I've used for a long time is always buy to your market, never market your buy. And that works both in a retail and a wholesale end. Know what you're going to do with the vehicle before you even give it a final bid price. And because of that, I find that very experienced ex-sales managers, used car managers, desk managers, however your dealer or dealer group was set up, personnel have different names in different groups, but people that have appraised thousands and thousands of cars probably bought that again at auction or in the past out of dealerships. But to put them across the desk and have them say, you know what, you get to work 180 degrees different than you did most of your career, and people are coming to you to try to sell you something rather than you selling them and having to close them, it brings a smile to their face every day.
That's great. So what I heard you say was the BDC reps that are talkative, that are energetic, happy, smile, and are essentially outgoing, are ones that have worked quite well within your structure. And then also the actual buyers are often seasoned, a bit more experienced, decisive, and certainly, as you said, have an exit strategy when you enter into that acquisition that you know exactly where it's going to go. So it's really interesting.
So I can't help but smile because I just absolutely love Gary Wade and his way he's able to take what I believe is to be the wrong person and make him the right person. I think that's a function of Gary Wade more than it is the person. So I go the exact opposite direction. I want somebody that doesn't know the difference between makes and models and doesn't know how to appraise a car and has never done it before. And I want to shift their paradigm to be data-driven, time-driven, which is very easy for a car guy, I call them car guys, to look at a car and use their past experience to determine future success of the product. Being a big V-Auto dealer, I don't want any of those paradigms. I want all market-driven data that you can teach a new person that has never done it before, that doesn't have any preconceived ideas, to look at a car as a commodity and based on percentages. And that's been really successful for us. Different, but very successful. So the common thread between Gary and I is definitely need somebody that's gregarious and upbeat and positive and easy to talk to and sort of has that boundless amount of energy. And then they start, every single person has started as an acquisition team member. The acquisition team member is the person that makes that 150 to 200 contacts a day, sets appointments, and that is it. Once they get that rolled down, they're trained by shadowing and studying V-Auto how to become an acquisition manager. Again, the difference between the team member and the manager is the ability to do the job from start to finish, from meet and greet, to walk around, to selling the unique selling propositions, to paperwork and release of liability. And that's the difference between the two roles.
That's great. So what I heard you say was data-driven, market-based, and I always find it, as you do, David, as you just indicated, incredibly interesting on how you and Gary operate with the exact opposites, but have so much success. And so the way that I can think about that is more of the common ground. Like what grounds do you guys share that you see the success? But it's the way that they approach their business is they both have a tremendously positive attitude. They both focus on what they can control. They measure KPIs incredibly close. They know the numbers of their business. They act with urgency. They share this with their team members, who equally act with as much urgency to make sure that the consumers have an excellent experience with the brand.
When people have clear expectations of what their day is, they feel supported from the top down, and they know what they need to do. And when you keep the numbers focused in front of them on a day-to-day basis and on a week-to-week, and you're never going to have a problem where a month's going to get away from you. It's treating a customer the way you would want to be treated in a situation. The unfortunate thing is we deal with people in every situation. We deal with a lot of people that have lost family members, that the car becomes an extra car because of that. And you have people that will break down and cry in your office as they let go of a car because maybe that was dad's last car. Or you have people that, have fallen on hard times, have to raise some cash to pay the rent or feed the kids. So you deal with everything from that way to people that the car just is something that's laying in the driveway, and it's something that just need to get rid of, and it could be a very expensive vehicle, and they just want to put cash back in their pocket. So you deal with people from both ends of the spectrum, and you have to be able to adjust and show compassion, but also enthusiasm, a lot of fun, make it fun. One of my coworkers is probably one of the most hilarious people that I've ever met, and to hear the little one-liners that come out of him every day brings joy to my face. So it's a fun thing.
We have a lot of fun. We definitely have a lot of fun. It's a light, upbeat, positive environment. But what I would invite anybody that listens to this now or in the future to consider is the car industry's over 100 years old, and there's a handful of highly successful buy centers in the country. So why don't these pop up on every street corner if we're able to have this kind of success? And the only thing that I've been able to deduce is it is really hard. There is a lot of work and effort that needs to go into this. And it takes a commitment and a drive and a focus and a discipline that most people are not willing to adhere to. And those would be my final thoughts.
I can't thank you both enough for spending some time with us today to share your process, your thoughts, your experiences. But you each have a tremendous amount of success, and that comes with the common grounds that we began the discussion with, and also added throughout this talk here. So thank you again. Each of these guys are incredibly generous with their time. They do talk to many of our advocates and associates that are using Van. So we're going to show their phone number and email address. So if you have any questions, concerns, they are good with you guys reaching out and discussing with them.